Super Poly is a really cool card because you can fuse away your opponent's monsters, and it's not even like they can respond with anything. This makes it a broken board breaker going second, but also a really good interruption going first. This video will focus on the best monsters to summon off of Super Poly, as well as the kind of decks that loses to the card. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Alright, I'll go straight to the point. You cannot play Super Poly without the three following fusion monsters. And I'm talking about Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Mud Dragon of the Swamp, as well as Garura. Starving Venom is extremely easy to summon because all you need for that one is two dark monsters, making it really good against Dragon Link and Despia. And Mud Dragon and Garura are also really similar because they both require a monster with the same attribute. The only difference is that for Mud Dragon, they also have to have different types, whereas for Garura, they have to have the same type. That means that with these two fusion monsters, you can cover so much ground because basically any deck that loses to Gozen Match would also lose to these fusion monsters. You will have to watch out for the Kashtira deck though, because a lot of their monsters have different attributes. They still lose out to Super Poly if they have Fenrir and the Scareclaw monster, or Shangri-La as well as the Rizard though. And worst case scenario, if your opponent only has like a Rizard, then you just summon your own dark monster and you fuse both away. But then again, these two fusion monsters cover so much ground that it's actually easier to find exceptions rather than examples. Now, some other really good Super Poly targets would be the cousins of Starving Venom, which would be Dragostapelia as well as Trifeuverdum. Dragostapelia requires any fusion as well as any dark, and it has kind of like an Effect Veiler-esque effect. And Trifeuverdum is a huge heavy hitter because you actually need 3 dark monsters to summon it, and it has like a Solemn Warning-esque effect. Trifeuverdum is devastating against Dragon Link because with a good timing, you can win with very little effort. Not to mention that Trifeuverdum works really well with Dragostapelia because it abuses Predator counters. And look, if you really hate Dragon Link that much, you can also use Boardload Fierce Dragon as well as 5-headed dragon if you really want to. More of like a meme, but if you pull it off, my man, you're the GOAT. And also, if you're a Despia player, you're probably gonna rejoice over the fact that your opponent is playing dragons. Alba Lanatis can either be fusion summoned or contact fused using Fallen of Albaz as well as any amount of dragon monsters on the field. This is terrifying because it allows Despia to break the full Dragon Link board using only Fallen of Albaz. They can set the damn card, and even Hieratic Seal cannot bounce it. And technically, even Tearlaments could kinda use it if they set King of the Swamp and then use Super Poly, but it's less cool and less realistic. Now, although Despia is a deck that really loves to play Super Poly, it's also a deck that can actually really lose to Super Poly. That deck loves playing light, dark, dragons, and spellcaster monsters, meaning that there are a lot of targets that are really good against it. You can hit him with Despian Proskinion or Mysterion the Dragon Crown, which makes Dragoon look like a total joke. These cards not only make them lose their biggest assets, but they're also really insane monsters with really good effects. But I think we've been bullying dark decks a little too much, so let's move on. What about Evil Twin Runic Sprite? Can you Super Poly them? Of course, with World Dragon, Guardian, Omradork, you can pretty much nuke everything they have. Trying to end your turn with 2 Evil Twin Link monsters and IP Masquerena? And I'll Super Poly using your 3 Link monsters and summon a Conductor Tyranno that can attack every other monster. And your carrot cannot negate it. And although I'd love to say that this card is always good against every single Runic Sprite deck, it's not really that great because it's less good against the For Hire version, and honestly Starving Venom is good enough. At this point, you can use Garura, Mud Dragon, or Starving Venom, you're good to go against that deck. Now, if you're really scared of Cyber's decks, one Super Poly target might be really good for you. Cyber's Deceive Worm is a really good Super Poly target for obvious reasons, but also it's the kind of card that Cyber's decks were already playing thanks to Terahertz. So if space is an issue, it's not like you have to play something else completely since you're already playing the card. This only really applies for like Math Mech decks though. Oh yeah, and I've been told that the Gold Pride Pony deck was pretty good. Yeah, that deck tries to summon Pinballer on your ass, and that card's really scary. But guess what? You can easily turn it against them. You can use their Roller Baller and their other Gold Pride monster to fuse into your Pinballer and break their board. I'd even go as far as to say that a single well-timed Super Poly can break their entire board. And nobody really expects Super Poly against them, so you can really catch them off guard. Hell, even their Punk Engine can somewhat lose to Rising Carp. Now, I've also heard that Baron de Fleur was a really good card and everybody and their mother was trying to summon the card. Now, although the card is really nice, it also makes you end your turn with a warrior on board. So if they control dragons on top of Baron, they also start losing to other kind of Super Poly targets. I'm especially talking about Dragon Knight Draco Equist as well as Curse of Dragon Fusion. This is actually pretty relevant against Mana Dome, for example, because they're trying to end on Bestial Dispatter as well as Baron de Fleur. But to be fair, the Dragon Link deck is also trying to do that. And if they end on more warriors instead of more dragons, so if you're playing against maybe Infernoble, then you can use some other kind of Super Poly targets. This time we've got Ida 10 as well as Guilty Gearfried. Finally, there are 2 other fusion monsters that I really want to cover in this video. The first one is Dragon Necro Nether Soul Dragon. You need 2 zombies for this one, so honestly the only way to make it really good is with Zombie World. A little specific, but if you can pull it off, then it's really insane. And finally, the last really insane Super Poly target is Courteous. That one's hard to summon, but if you summon it, you win the game on the spot. You need 1 Synchro, 1 Xyz, and 1 Link monster extra to summon, so even if your opponent summons maybe 2 of them, then you can summon the 3rd one and make the Cordius the hard way. And you should really read the effect, because if you summon this card, there is no way you lose the game. But overall, if your extra deck space is tight, I only recommend you to play the super poly targets that I opened with in this video. But with that being said, that's all I had for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about super poly in the comment section below, and let me know if you have other super poly targets that might be good for this format. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.